Retro Future.
Hello everyone, this is Bansert of Radio Retro Future, and today I have a bit of a rambly video for you. I got a message from Ruud de Korte. He is a steampunk photographer, very well known for his photography in the fantasy scene here in Europe. And actually, I did an interview with him about, it must have been about 6 years ago, 2013. He was the first person I ever interviewed for my blog, Tupperware Steampunk. This is long before my venture into YouTube. So yeah, that's kind of nice to return to that. I think I had a conversation with him on the show as well. I'll look it up and put it down in the description as well. And today's subject is on a blog he wrote on his website, on which we'll be going through today. Also, his original article is in Dutch, so I need to make some translations here and there. And I will do that to the best of my ability. And with that being said, let's just get right in there. So he starts off with what I would call the textbook definition of steampunk as a variation on cyberpunk in the past. His personal definition, and I will rephrase that a bit, is a Western vision of a potential future that would never come to fruition and is inspired by the late 19th and early 20th century. I assume he means aesthetically aspired. Now, as a general statement, I want to emphasize that steampunk is a homonym that has at least 3 different meanings. Please clarify what you're talking about when you're writing articles like this, because now I'm kind of guessing. Anyway, steampunk to him is a combination of all that existed in that historical time frame, plus all the technological benefits we enjoy today, plus all the futuristic inventions. We're just going to be talking aesthetics here, so not genre, so I don't really have anything to comment on that. Now he talks about fruitless discussions on what steampunk ought to be. That's an interesting one. Now in this channel I like to talk about 2 main things. A, what steampunk is, so what I see happening in its fiction, in its community. And the second thing is how to innovate. Those are my primary concerns. I'm not interested in what steampunk ought to be. That is, it is not a good strategy to create anything unless you want to create like a specific setting or story. That's completely different. But you cannot manage communities in that way. Communities evolve depending on the people who join that community, etc., etc. Ruud mentions steampunk music and steampunk technology as an example. Like on steampunk music, I already made a complete video on that, so I'm not gonna comment on it much further, but there are some people who believe, it can only contain acoustic instruments or instruments known to the century. So that's one take. In reality, this is not the case. As a matter of fact, if you're going to exclude anyone that uses synthetic instruments, you're going to exclude major personalities within the steampunk community. So it's just not a good strategy. And the other one on the technology, like there are people who say, well, you got to use this particular type of technology or that particular type of technology or principle. And, and I completely disagree. First of all, steampunk is alternate history. The point is to add futuristic inventions to the setting and explore what that does to that society. So the entire idea is counter to what steampunk is supposed to be. If you only want to have, according to technological innovation and stuff like that, you got to write historical novels or something, because this is just not going to work for steampunk. Now, as for a writer, well, I'll use myself for an example for this one, I want to write a story. I want to evoke certain situations, certain feelings, certain experiences. So I wrote a story I'm working now, which is going to be posted pretty soon in the Association of Ishtar. Check out those stories if you haven't already, link down in the description. Where people are in 1821 are listening to the radio. Yeah, that's not... Public radio is something that does not exist yet until, I think, early 1900. In that way, radios are older than that, but not used for public broadcasting as of yet. But I want to evoke a certain experience. And, the radio plays a very important role. in that. In the same way, we cannot think of a 21st century where there is no social media. So it's a very similar principle, really. So there's that. I thought it was interesting. Now then there is, his view of steampunk and why it is so important to him, especially as a photographer. And I like the piece for the perspective of the photographer. I do some photography, but very specific for my videos and stuff like that, and for character work, but not for, not as an art, not yet anyway. And he talks about, the importance of DIY in steampunk and recycling, or upcycling as it's often called, of old furniture, old clocks, stuff like that. And he quotes a mutual friend of ours, Andy Fraser, an Englishman that lives in the south of the Netherlands, who said, "I like to get old junk that doesn't work, take it apart, and make new junk that will never work." Yeah, that's a typical Andy statement, and it's also very true. But yeah, Ruud, I'll try to pronounce it in Dutch, otherwise it just doesn't work. Ruud laments the upcycling within the steampunk community is getting rarer. Well, he actually calls it a dying art. I don't agree, but I do agree it's I wouldn't say it's so much disappearing as it is getting overwhelmed. So I kind of agree with him. Steampunk is turning more and more into cosplay. And for those who were watching me know, I draw a very distinct difference between cosplay and steampunk. His reasons say, well, in 2010, you had to make all things steampunk yourself. There were no vendors, or at least very few, and they were less focused. Those who were less focused on mass producing. So, and now you have so many vendors who are all basically sell the same objects, the same canes, the same guns, the same top hats, usually bought from stores in India or China and places like that. So you start, I wouldn't say you're starting to see clones, but it's all the same principle of, top hat, waistcoat, brown pants, and that's a fair description of a lot of what you'll see walking around. And when you are a photographer that's looking for unique models, okay, guy in top hat and brown waistcoat number 15, at some point you're just done with photographing the same basic principle. The one of the benefits steampunk has in that regard is the small details. But, when people start buying the same mask, because you're seeing all these steampunk masks now being for sale, so people start wearing those. So those are not unique anymore either, People buy the same goggles that they put on the same top hats. So you're losing that uniqueness as well. So, it's becoming more and more, it's getting too easy. That's basically the idea. And well, let's be fair, people's time is scarce, and, I get it. That's not the problem. I get it. But they don't do the customization that steampunk is known for. And that's becoming a problem, especially for people like me who are looking for unique things. So yeah, but enough about that. So Ruud's point is that steampunk is losing its unique visual appeal, since we can now gather cheap stuff from Asia and people just start wearing a variation of the same things. It's nice for the mainstream because they can just adopt steampunk for, any occasion, like, I don't know, Carnival, for example, or Christmas parties, Halloween. But yeah, what does that mean for steampunk as a culture? Is that necessarily a bad thing? Well, not necessarily, because you are attracting a larger audience. And, the mainstream is adapting it. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily a good thing, but it will be interesting to see what the mainstream will do with it. And, a lot of people complain about, the poor state of especially men's fashion. So yeah, maybe the men will start dressing a little bit nicer. Who knows? Then there is something I find personally interesting, because then he says, of course there are still people being creative with the stuff they find. And then he shows a picture of Dankert Lexicon, my character. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. but I thought it was funny. Also, Ruud, by the way, that coat isn't historical. It was designed by Rosie's art. So, yeah, unless people wear zippers on the outside of their sleeves. Not sure. Pretty sure they didn't. Anyway, that's my little jab at you. Regardless, if you like this image, by the way, that I'm showing you right now, it is for sale on his website, and yeah, I do get a commission if he sells one. Never happened, by the way, but you know, who knows? If you're interested in having me on your wall, here's your chance. But if you want to support us directly, we do have a subscribe star, and we just recently updated the ranks and rewards, so check that out if you haven't already. Your help would be greatly appreciated. Now, back to the article. He acknowledges there are various styles and distinctions can be made between steampunks from various countries. That's true. Not always, though. Yeah, I do feel like I feel trapped a little bit by my presuppositions on how certain steampunks from certain countries dress. So I do notice, you know, one event it's all goth, and the next event it's all historical, for example. Not sure if I agree with it. Let's just say that. But it's his comments on photography I find very interesting. That's also the main reason I wanted to talk about this article, because, you know, it's steampunk from the perspective of a photographer. I just wished he talked more about it. But there are some interesting things here that I would like to comment on. Now, one thing he noticed that early steampunk photography was not very creative. They took pictures of steampunks and just put a sepia or a brownish filter over it, maybe some dust and scratches, regardless whether it actually added anything to the photo or not. Yeah, the lack of creativity on the use of filters, that's also one of the things, right? And one of the things I don't like about social media. I post a lot of pictures now on Instagram, so you can follow me there, Radio Retro Future Steampunk at Instagram, if you're interested in seeing what we're up to. And recently I'm also more interested in photoshopping photos of myself, because I have ambitions in that area. Now, I try to develop a style with certain oil filters to create a kind of a comic booky feel. So it's not a real, so it doesn't look real anymore, but more realistically drawn, as it were, because I feel that fits the themes, especially with our Association of Ishtar theme that we're working on. So a lot of brown, orange filters make the pictures more warmer, more claustrophobic as well. So that's something, a style I'm trying to develop. Ruud himself works a lot with contrast. Just check out his work. His editing is top notch. And he talks about, yeah, a lot of photographers don't really take the time to do that. They just, you know, put a filter they can get. I don't know, Instagram has basic filters, and a lot of people just use those. Not saying they cannot be effective, some of those can be very effective, but it's done nilly-willy. There's no you know, it does not gel well with the rest of the photo. That's one of the main points. And he also gives some tips for, you know, for photographers themselves. You know, if you photograph models, here are a few tips. A few tips he gives, they sound really obvious, but you'll be amazed. A little bit more about it later. So make sure you, the photographer, emphasizes the various facets of the clothing, the makeup, etc. Because, you know, people put a lot of work in that. You know, they deserve some attention. Make photos with different poses from various angles, you know, and then you can pick the best one. Usually the models also don't mind if you give them direction, and even prefer it. I like it when photographers give me direction, because that shows to me that they have something of a vision. The thing is, you've got like 100 people that come to you during the day. I want to take a photo of you. Most just take a picture wherever. Some actually take the time. They tell you, well, can you go stand over there? Can you stand over like this? Can you stand over like that? And I still prefer that, you know, because then it's like, okay, he's taking his time. This person wants to actually make something that looks good and isn't just like, oh, well, I've been here and I've seen these people. One of the things I really dislike about photos on social media, I have made photos I spent hours on editing, trying to learn new techniques. Then I post it and I get maybe 1-2 likes. And then I took a photo once with a friend of mine, and we were testing our new selfie stick. Took the picture, put it on social media just because, and that photo got like, I don't know how many likes. It was ridiculous. So that's really annoying. I don't know why that is. So I understand the concept of you only have like 3 seconds to get somebody's attention. But I guess, you know, food, well, everybody likes food and no one needs to question why food is good. I guess that it is. Alright, I have enough wasting your time. I'm sorry for coming off rambly this video. Please have a look at our subscribe star and the new perks. We can really use your support. Also, check out our story page, which is an expanding collection of stories. So, really happy about that. Well, I guess I'm just gonna say, make it your way. Good night. Thank you all for watching, and what are your opinions on authenticity in steampunk? Is it a dying art? If so, should we reinvigorate it, and how? Now, special thank you to Steamy Wonders and CGD Spender for making this possible, and sorry for spelling your name wrong last time. If you like a personal thank you at the end of our videos and some other cool stuff, check us out on Subscribestar. And also don't forget to check out our new channel, the Retro Future Research Foundation. Links down in the description. And with that, I bid you adieu, and of course, as always, make things